All right, so today what I thought I should do was to literally summarize the whole slow flip process. And I'll tell you the reason why I decided to do that is because, whenever you do any kind of a course, and the Freedom Accelerator is a great course, it's very comprehensive. When you do that kind of a course and there's a lot of information, then what happens is, and it happened to me also, and I'm sure it might be happening to you, is that at some point you're not sure where to start because you may have some specialized information on a certain area. So in your mind, you think, well, maybe I should start first on something that I don't know or don't know how to do, which is fine. So there's no correct way of doing it. But I'm sharing with you what I, after going through the course and after understanding the slow flip process, in my opinion, if you do it in this way, and I have 9 steps that I'm going to show you. And again, like I mentioned, we are recording this so you can go back and look at it. So I'm going to show you these 9 steps and they're sequential. So if you're still getting stuck with what to do or you're jumping from uh, one thing to another, these 9 steps will actually show you sequentially what how you should be at least thinking in approaching this. All right. So having said that, alrighty. So step one, the obvious step is choose a market. Now I see comments, I hear a lot of people talk about this. um, the problem is when you start talking about market, I notice a lot of, especially newbies, start talking about things that are non-relevant. They start posting things from other gurus about a market, uh, and it'll confuse not only you, it'll confuse others who are trying to follow a step-by-step system. So here's my suggestion: pick any market where majority of the community members are currently buying. And there, for me, this was the best thing I did instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, is because number one, they're boots on the ground. They are already people who are helping our community be successful in these cities. So why start in a new city? Why try to look for something different when you have most of your people doing work here? And don't ever think that because there's so many people doing this market, it's saturated. That's never going to happen. I'm sure you've heard that many times by Scott talking about this. All right. So 2 examples: St. Louis, Missouri is a very, very big market. You can start there. Peoria, Illinois is also a decent size market that you can start with. But here's the thing, don't overthink this step. All right, just pick one and then go with it. Also, one other mistake could be if you start with one market and you start doing some research, you get really excited, and then suddenly the interest fizzles out for whatever reason, and then you start looking at a different market, and then you start all over again. Now, markets are different, so you will see some differences. Another thing, let me share with you my personal experiences. If I find a certain market, I stick with it. For example, in my case, I buy from both wholesalers and I buy on the MLS. After a while, depending on how the markets fluctuates, sometimes the inventory goes down drastically. So let's say I was thinking about, although it never happens in St. Louis, but let's say Peoria, Missouri, sorry, Peoria, Illinois. If you have certain buying criteria and you keep searching, and suddenly you'll see after a couple of weeks that there are very few properties. And that could be discouraging for some people by saying, oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong market. No, you're not. As long as the community members are buying in those markets and they're filling them, they're already successful. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All right. So, number one, choose one market and stick with it. Step number two, remember, these are sequential. It all comes from the same course. This is the Freedom Accelerator course, but it's sequential, in my opinion. Research this market. So whichever market you chose, now you're going to go deep research. What Scott says, and it's a brilliant idea, is to look at 100 prospective properties. And by that, it doesn't mean you have to go and do deep research in on every single property. That will take you a lot of time, and that's completely unnecessary. In my opinion, you need four things. You should look at four things when you, which let's say you need to do 100 properties. When you do that, you're looking at four things. You're looking at number one, what is the price this property is listed at? Number two, what is the bedroom, bathroom spec? Look at sold comps and rental comps. Now, if you notice, I didn't even mention the square footage. The square footage does play a little role, but primarily in this business, we are putting tenant buyers in the property based on what the market rentals are for that spec. So in most cases, the number of bedroom bath does drive that factor. All right. So that's all. Those four things you're looking for. And so if you look at a property and you have the tools available and open, you could do a whole bunch of properties in 2 3 days. You can go through a lot of them in a right. And so again, just 4 items, but you are looking at 100 properties. That will take you time. But what's going to happen is, and by the way, you can also keep some kind of a journal where you are making notes and you're kind of writing down again the price of the property that you're finding, the number of bedroom, bath, and sold comps and rental comps. Now, why do you think Scott says you should look at 100 properties? Well, just for the fact that you looked at so many different properties, there is a very, very good chance, and sure enough, that's it worked for me. After a while, you start seeing patterns. You start seeing what a typical 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,000 square feet in the certain zip code or in a city limit that you're looking at. How much does it come on the market for? Right? And once you start doing that, you will start seeing patterns. You will start seeing that 3 bedroom, comes at this price range, and this is what it's renting for. A 2 bedroom comes on the market at this price range, and on an average, it's renting for this much. So you will have these reference points, basically data. And remember, with data, you can do a lot of things. So that's why step number 2 is research this market by looking at 100 prospective properties. Next, number 4, you should have funds available. So there are two parts of this. You are either going to self-fund it or you're going to have a private lender do it. So some people don't know this. You obviously need to have purchase price available. You should have that much funds available. You should have funds for closing costs. You should have money for insurance premium. Insurance is paid upfront for the whole year, so you would have to have that. And there's miscellaneous costs. Whether you keep reserves or not, you do need to keep budget for. Sometimes you need to set up utilities even before you can. The city would turn on utilities. They won't even turn them on for you. And sometimes even before you put 10 buyers in them, the owner has to have the utilities turned on. You can transfer them over, but you need to have them turned on. So there's a deposit, there's a small cost involved there. So I would say miscellaneous cost. I keep about 10%. 10% is a lot, but I'm saying if you keep 10%, then you will never have a problem. All right. So if you're buying a property for $30,000, you need to have about $3,000 additional funds available to ensure that you have enough money for your closing costs, insurance premium, and miscellaneous costs. Most likely you won't need more than that, but with that much money, you'll be fine. So this is if you are self-funding, right? Now, if you have a private lender, you need to first understand the process. What do you have to do? And if you don't, then maybe again, that could be another coaching call we could do. But generally you would need, if you have a private money lender, is you would need to create a mortgage and you would need to create a promissory note. You would need to create it for them, which means either you'd have to have an attorney look at it. What I did, again, I can do a separate session about that. I actually paid a legal firm to create a template for the states that I am in, and then I simply use the same templates over and over again, so I don't have to pay for it again and again. All right. And so then once you have the template, all you're doing is changing the information based on address and their name and the price of the property in the mortgage and the promissory note. All right. And then this is what I do. This is going to be important. So please pay attention to this. If you have a private money lender and if you never worked with private money lenders, it's very important that you get some kind of a commit from them. All right. I see some comments. I never comment on them. But my caution for you would be if somebody has said, hey, yeah, sure, bring me a deal and I'll look at it. That doesn't mean anything. That person could back out at the last moment, and that's the last thing you want. And it could be a disaster. So what I say, here's a literal, you could actually tell them this, all right? I call it a semi-hard commit. You could say, hey, if I bring a property to you after you do your due diligence, would you be able to fund it within 3 weeks? So look what you did in this. Number one, you are saying that you're going to bring a property, and you are saying that just because you're bringing the property, they're not going to commit on it, but they're going to do the due diligence. But then you're immediately saying that you should be able to close in 3 weeks. Do you see that? And if they say yes, then you'll know that they're serious and they have funds available. Because when you say 3 weeks, if they don't have liquid funds available, they'll say, well, I have money, but it's stuck in this and that. Well, guess what? If you have a property and you have something under contract and you need to close in 3, 4 weeks, and they don't have liquid funds, it's going to take them a while to get the funds available. So make sure you figure this part out really well. All right. So step 3 would be ensure you have funds available. Do you see how we are doing this? We are doing it sequentially. All right, so here comes the most important part, because without this, nothing will happen. You have to start putting offers in. Whether you're finding your deals on the MLS, whether you're finding the deals on the Freedom Accelerator community, whether you're getting the deals from outside wholesalers, or you're directly dealing with sellers, that's fine. Start putting your offers in. You will not see any progress if you do not put a whole bunch of offers. Now, here's one newbie problem that I always see on the forum. So I'm going to address that, is that maybe you're unsure how much to offer. So I'm going to give you a tip. This is going to be really helpful. There are many ways of doing it, but this is what I suggest if you have no idea. Remember, anytime you collect data, and once you have data, that you are in a very, very powerful position, because you're basing your on data rather than just having a feel about it. All right. So here's my suggestion for you to figure out what you should be offering. So here's what you do. Whichever market you're in, go and look at sold properties. You can do that on Zillow and you can do that on realtor.com. Then so look at what that property sold at. All right. So I have the screenshot in front of you on top. Here's a property that's in Toledo, Ohio, 2 bedroom, 1 bath. It sold for $25,000 on, I don't know, August 1st, right? After that, you can head over to PropWire. There are other ways to do that. I'm just showing you what I do. PropWire.com, which I shared last time. It's a free resource. You can get set up an account and you can do all of this for free. Within PropWire, there are different tabs. Go to the history tab of this property. So you'll have to search for this specific property that you found. Search for that property. Once you find that property, go to the history tab and look at the last price it was listed at. That's the listing price. So here I have the screenshot down here that is showing you that this property was actually listed at $30,000. So what does that mean? That this specific maybe zip code, if you have enough properties that you look at in the zip code, you'll start figuring out that if a property comes to the market around $30,000, it could be selling around $25,000. So your offer should be what? You should obviously not be offering 25, right? What that means is your offer should be under 25. And most likely you're going to come to a agreement at 25. So again, this is based on data, right? So this will give you an idea what to offer, and you'll be confident about it. And then once you do get, after you do a whole bunch of offers, you will get something under contract. This is very important. If you don't know this is very, very important for you to know that you need to have certain inspection period in the contract. By default, if you're dealing with an agent, they actually put these things in for you, but they can all be changed. So I always put at least 3 days inspection period in there. And basically, this is the period where you can back out of the contract for any reason. And this is the time you need to be spending researching the property. I want to make sure we're good on time. Yes, excellent. All right. So next is your due diligence. So you have a property now under contract. You made a whole bunch of offers, and finally you got one under contract. And you made sure before you signed the contract that it had the 3-day inspection period in there. And so this is called the escape clause. There are many ways. There's other escape clauses, but in this, I'm just going to limit this to SlowFlips. This would be the escape clause for you. In other words, for whatever reason, if you have to get out of the contract, this would be it, which is the 3-day inspection period. So in these 3 days, not only are you going to have your boots on the ground, walk the property, you're going to do, most importantly, your money math. And I'm going to show you on the next slide how to do your money math, which means basically figure out the financials. Does it make sense, right? All right. So now you're ready. Now you need to have your boots on the ground. Now, if you're new, you've been on the community, you know that we've got a great community. So all you're doing is you're saying, putting a message on the community board by saying, hey, I need help. Who's the boots on the ground in this city? And there's a whole bunch of people. There's a lot of other ways you can do this. You can pay other people to do this for you. You can even have the agent walk it for you. I'll talk about that later. But either way, you have to have someone who is your representative walking the property. Even though there might be listed pictures, there might be listed videos, you want to have your version of it, right? Because remember what Scott says, that the pictures that are on the MLS or whatever somebody's selling is the picture from their point of view. They're wanting to have the best shots, right? But when it's your person, you can say, well, I wonder how the ceiling looks. And suddenly you pan the camera up and, there's a huge hole up there that wasn't there. So that's why it has to be your person. Now, this is another thing in your due diligence you have to know before you even start doing this, is have some criteria on, I call it my own, I have my own buy box. Based on this, I have my own criteria that um, whatever worst condition, I would accept the property and I would not go below that. So in my case, I don't buy homes that do not have mechanicals. Either they're missing or they're not working. So for example, a furnace is missing, or water heater is missing, or there's a leaking roof, or there's a foundation problem. These are the 4 or 5 big ones for me. Or also a breaker box. If the breaker box is missing or the electrical wiring is missing, these are the big ones. If as soon as I find that out, I'm not interested in the property. So you have to come up with your own list by saying, I can live with this, I can live with this. No, this is something I cannot. There's no way I'm going to buy this, right? But you got to decide that first before the boots on the ground goes there, so you know what to look for, right? So once you do that, and once your boots on the ground comes back to you, you did your video, you did your analysis, and now is your time. If there are some clarification required, you saw something that you weren't sure about, you need to now get clarification about these before your 3 days expire, right? Because after this, and even if somebody says, remember this, guys, I've been in real estate long enough, and you guys are all smart, understand that anything in writing, it's in writing. Anything verbal is only verbal. So even if a agent says, oh, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, I'll let you know after the 3 days. No, never do that. Okay. The 3 days are gone and you will never, and guess what? You're stuck now because you have a legally binding contract. So get your clarifications on any issue that came across during your inspection with either the listing agent or the seller at this stage. Now, once the inspection period expires, you should now be preparing for closing. So now you should be completely focused on that, nothing else, right? And if you're newbie, don't try to do multiple properties, please. I'm telling you, one is, and I've been doing this long enough. And when I have more than 2 properties going on, I just, because if one thing goes wrong, it can really mess up your whole, not just your day, but the whole week. So do one and just focus on the closing. All right. So what are we doing when we are focusing on the closing? We want to make sure our funding is lined up, and we want to make sure we have enough quotes coming in for insurance, because you need to buy and have your insurance active on day one. As soon as you take possession, your insurance should be active, because the last thing you want to do is you take possession and you still don't have insurance. And guess what? For whatever strange reason, it burned down. And now you have a really big problem. All right. So again, this is sequential. So this is step 6 is your due diligence. Second part of due diligence is your money math. This is really important. If you're not a math person, this is very, very simple numbers. This is there's no advanced calculation involved, but this is very important. All right. So what you're really trying to do is you got to figure out if you have a private money lender, you got to figure that out. That goes in the equation. If you don't have a private money lender, then still you will have to decide, hey, what kind of returns am I expecting based on the money that I'm going to put up. You also have to figure out your prorated insurance and taxes on a monthly basis. Even though you might be paying your taxes, sometimes are paid quarterly, insurance is paid yearly. But what I do is I just prorate everything. I figure out a dollar number for a monthly basis, and then I use that in my equation, and that's what I'm showing you. So let's take just an example, a purchase price of $27,000. I'm just rounding numbers off. Closing cost was $3,000. So we need $30,000 to close this property, right? Let's assume the property taxes are $700 a year. Property insurance is $500 a year. And this property could rent for $900 a month. So if you have a private lender payment, it'll be $667.33 a month. Your prorated taxes and insurance are going to be $100 a month. So the first red line here is the cash flow if you have a private money lender. So if you deduct from your monthly rental 667 minus 100, you have a buffer of 132.67 a month, which is pretty decent, right? And of course, if you don't have a private money lender, you have $800 a month. And so basically you figure out 800 times 12, that number divided by 30,000, that would be your cash on cash or however return you're looking at. So you do need to do that. So at least you have this idea before you close on the deal and you have no idea what the numbers are. Step 7, closing time. Now, if you're self-funding, closing is rather simple. You just have to ensure that you get your settlement statement from the title company. Settlement statement is basically a summary of what the balances are, who's getting what at the closing. So in this case, it's going to show you that you will get some credit on taxes, for example, because if that person has paid the whole tax for the year or something like it depends on how they paid the taxes. You might get some credit. If it was rented, you might get the deposit as credit, but mostly you're going to get a big debit for the funds that are required to close the property, right? So the settlement statement is the statement that you're looking for. If your title company is not giving you the settlement statement, this is very important, guys. If the title company keeps telling you we're ready to close, we're ready to close, we're ready to close, and you never see the title settlement statement, that means the title company is not ready to close. There's something going on. So as soon as I never even tell my private lenders to wire anything until I now see the settlement statement, because you could be stuck on something or some issue with whatever taxes or something, and the title company cannot give a clear title. And if you send your money over, now it's going to sit in their escrow account for until it clears up. All right. So look at the settlement statement prior to the closing. This is very important. Check for errors and excess charges. It's extremely common, believe it or not, for title companies to charge you for things that you're not supposed to be paying. Because most people don't see it. I'm about to close on a property and I was charged like 3 times wire fees. And I'm saying, why are you charging me all these fees? There's only one wire that you have to wire me, and my private lender is wiring, so they're paying for the fee. And so literally they took it off. But if I didn't ask them, it'll just go there and it'll stay there. All right. Also ensure to inform the title company that you're going to be self-funding this deal, so they're aware. On the day of the closing, you're going to wire the funds directly to the title company. And so ensure and verify the banking information from the title company before you wire funds. The first time, when I did this, I remember, I mean, I had to make sure I called the title company. I made sure the numbers, everything matched, because once wire is gone, it's gone. The title company will prepare your deed and file it at the local county level. This is included in the service. That's what they're charging you for. And then the county will stamp the deed and send you the original back in a couple of weeks. So it does take a while. Now, ensure you figured out how you're going to take the possession of the property. So either your boots on the ground are going to meet the seller, if there is a seller involved, to get the keys and put a lockbox. So make sure you have someone who can do this for you. So boots on the ground are good, great for this. Also, you can use the agent. If there is a listing agent involved, you can ask them really nicely and they'll do it for you. Now, if there is a private lender involved, it is a little bit more complex because you will have to coordinate everything from your private lender and you have to walk them through the entire process. So first of all, ensure you understand the process and you can explain the process to your private lender, what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So as soon as you have a hard commit, as I mentioned before, from your private lender, advise the title company and your insurance agent, because both have to know the name of your private lender. Your title company will have them as a mortgagee, and the insurance agent needs to show them as additional insured on the insurance. So they both need to know that. And then ensure that your title company, let's see the documentation they need. Yeah, also here's the interesting thing that I'm finding, even though I've closed, dozens of properties in Illinois and Ohio as well, it depends on the title company. Some are really, really good. They know what's going on. Some honestly are not that good. So what's going to happen is, because you're going to be working with them, ask them, hey, what are the documents do you need? Even though you might know it, just ask them. Because at the last moment, they'll say, oh, we don't do it this way. Now you're stuck. Guess what? You will have to do it their way. For example, they want a certain document notarized, and you know that it's not necessary, but they're requiring it. Now it's going to take you another day. So please ask them, especially when there is a private lender involved. In my case, I'm in Texas. My private lenders are somewhere else, and the property is in another state. So I'm talking about sending a FedEx document with my original signature to them, having them sign, and then sending it to the title company. So if something goes wrong, you have to redo the whole process, and that's going to push the closing further down. So please be aware of that. So generally, you'll need two documents for if you have a private lender. You will need to have a mortgage created and a promissory note. The mortgage is the most important one because that's what the title company is interested in, because your deed is associated with that mortgage, right? There's a mortgage that is associated with that deed. So the title company needs to know that. And guess what? The title company would need the original. They would need the original and they would need it notarized. Now, here's my experience. I'm going to tell you very quickly. I know that if I have a mortgage that is notarized by both parties, and if I send them a copy, it should be good enough for them to close. And then later on, the original can arrive. But guess what? I worked with a title company that refused to do that. Oh no, we need the original one with us on the day of the closing. And the funny thing was this: when it arrived on the day of the closing, they refused. They said, oh, this has a prior date. You cannot have a prior date because the mortgage should be created on the day of the deed, which does make sense. But then I told them, how can we do this? Because we are not in the same place. So I'm just telling you that make sure you talk to them and make them understand where your private lender is and how you're going to do this. And then also, this is very important, ensure that your mortgage and promissory note is compliant with the state where the property is located. So there might be some minor changes and you may have to tweak it. So you want to make sure, again, if you have an attorney, pay them once and use the templates, then you know it's compliant. And then finally, just make sure you keep your private lender informed every step of the way. That's step 7. And finally, once everything is done and either you or your private lender has wired the funds, closing happens, congratulations, you just bought your first slow flip, right? Now the second part is filling. So you can do it yourself. Well, if you go through the Freedom Accelerator program, there's a whole section on it. Read it and apply it. Or you can find fillers in the Freedom Accelerator community. If you just put a message, you've seen this, you all know this, but I'm just showing you step by step sequentially what you should be doing, right? So you put a message, hey, I closed the property in so and so city, I'm looking for fillers. And if you don't know, these services, the fillers charge half of the down payment for assisting you. And actually, they do quite a lot of work. Not only are they marketing, they're actually coordinating the showing. Then they're sending them the actual documents to have them sign. They're accepting the down payment. So there's a lot of work involved and a lot of coordination is required. So in my opinion, it's well worth it. And then yeah, so once you're working with fillers, make sure you know the listing numbers for your new slow flip. So for example, you're looking at $900 a month in monthly payments, and you're looking for down payment of about $3,000 and a sales price of $80,000. So in this case, it's at around 12%, which is 792.03 plus $107.97 cents for taxes and insurance. Now, these are the numbers you can tweak based on what the usually interest rate is for that state. If the interest rate is 12, then you can't go over 792.03. You can have taxes and insurance, and even if that doesn't work, you can put up some kind of an administrative fee. And so your fillers are really good with this. They can help you with this. All right. So if you can't figure it out, just tell them, hey, tweak the numbers. I'm looking for approximately $900 a month. If you can make that happen, we can tweak the numbers. And so that's why for me, it's well worth it. I always use them. All right.
Do
Finally,
we ask?
step 9. Let me just
Do
finish
we?
this up.
Okay. Yes.
Step 9 is the last step, which is now management. So once the property is filled, you should have a signed copy of the contract for deed. So you have that, and you have the down payment. So what I do, this is really important. I see some people don't do it. Request when you're having your fillers help you fill. I always get all kinds of contact information of my tenant buyer. I ask for a driver's license. I ask for email address, and I ask for cell phone for all the adults in the home. You need that. All right. Figure out your policies, whatever they are, ensure they are consistent with what's in your contract for deed. So if in contract for deed says on the 10th day or on the 5th day, there's late fees applying, make sure that's what you're going to be doing. Don't do something different. Same with the due date for the rent. All right. You can use an online management software. I use Inago, but you can use Buildium. Buildium is a paid version. I hear it's really, really good. You can see the screenshot on the right. I'm not sure if this is Buildium, but this is one software, and this is Inago. Inago is free, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. But the best thing is you can manage your tenants, and you can accept payments from your tenants. You can also communicate with your tenants through the platform, so it works really well. Now, if you have a private lender that was involved in this, make sure you have some kind of a system. You can do it from most banks where you set up automatic ACH so that they get their monthly payments going automatically, so you don't have to do that. And guess what? That's basically it. You just repeat the process. So about 4 minutes left. So I can maybe take one question, but like I said, this is going to be a recording and you'll be able to see it. What I said was that this is sequential. So while everything is important in here, what you do first, what you do second, you can decide whatever you want. In my opinion, if you do this like this sequentially, it will make it a lot easier for you. So I have time for one question.
How do you get PropStream for free? I did a free trial, but then it said it was going to charge me a lot of money.
That's PropWire, PropStream.
PropWire, yeah. That's why I'm saying I think it's not PropStream. It's
which is great for starting out because there's so much money we have to put down for our systems.
Absolutely.
Now, the only place I got stuck a little bit was what you said on Newbies, figuring out the price. I did hop on PropStream or whatnot with the free trial, and I just put an offer in on a house. And so when you have what it was sold for versus what other ones are selling for, do you tend to go below, or kind of how do you that's where I get.
So remember, if it's sold for a certain price, you didn't offer that price. I mean, if you did, then you probably offered more, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So if it's sold for 25, which means that they agreed on 25, most likely you offered something less than 25. Maybe you offered 20, 22. If you're too far,
they
yeah, if you
negotiate up. Sorry.
exactly. But if you're too far off, let's say you offer 15, well, guess what? You might just make the seller mad, or they might just think you're not serious. So that's why your research, that's why I'm saying when you look Scott's advice about looking at 100 properties, you'll just see the
So
data. It'll be in,
I've been looking for weeks in Peoria, and I found this really nice 3-bedroom house, and it said that it last sold years ago for 32,100, and they did some updates on it. So I was thinking about 35, but with that, like, it's hard when they change the house. I
that's
guess.
true. If it's been a
Yeah.
very long time between the last data and now, but again, just look at comparables. Look at what other homes with the same age.
The comps for that house, they had it listed at 42.9, and
Right.
all the comps were coming in 31 to 35. So
Right. All right. Well, guys, I hope this was helpful. It's going to be
helpful.
from now on, it's going to be recordings, and you can go back to the website and you should be able to watch this. All right. Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, Amir.
Sweet.